Let's get to something that we have not talked about for a while, but that doesn't mean it's not a problem. It just means there's been lots of other things that have distracted many of us in the media. Youth crime in Queensland. Well, today there was a new attempt by the Premier to pretend that the problem doesn't exist, the Jedi mind trick, the Men in Black memory machine. Youth crime has become a fundamental problem in Queensland. Now, remember, we did a show earlier this year in Toowoomba. We have remained in constant contact with everyone in the places that we've done our towns from and many of the places where you watch us on Sky News Regional each and every night, from Rockhampton to Mount Isa, all the way through to what's happening in the southeast. But youth crime is a massive problem, so much so that normal people who aren't political, but just people were forced out of anger to say the state that we love has turned into a state of distress, and it is because the government that is currently there is soft on crime. It has waxed and waned about its views. While on the one hand it's telling us that it's going to be doing things to change penalties, it's legalising the possession of drugs, which of course, to procure, many people commit crimes. Well, as you know, those people were rageful, and rightly so. And of course, the Premier did her best to hide from these people. But today, we got another attempt from the spin machine in Brisbane and the Brisbane Labor Party that they care about crime. The official way to report the story the way the Premier would like is that compensation to victims of crime has been dramatically increased. The reality is it's nowhere near the spin. In fact, victims of crime, yes, will be able to access thousands of dollars more in government-funded financial support under a $200 million cash boost. Now, of course, the $200 million is spread over 5 years, so do the sums, and $185 million of it will go towards increased financial assistance for victims. But remember, while she stands there and says $185 million, it's really divided by 5. And actually, if anyone thinks that adequate compensation offered by the government for the failures of the system that the government runs and funds is going to change anyone's mind about their attitude towards youth crime, have a look at the fine print. Because there are maximums of this new compensation scheme. And have a look at this here, Ryle, that while they may well end up paying for funeral expenses anywhere between up to $15,000 and general distress payments could go up to $15,000, this is the best that you can do. And again, it's not about compensation, but it's about a government pretending that they care, and they care via compensation. The maximum the Queensland government will give in compensation to somebody whom is a victim of attempted murder or rape, if the person is under 16 and the person who assaulting them is a member of their family, is $15,000. That's it. No life-changing money, just $15,000. For Category B crimes, which are sexual offences, grievous bodily harm, robbery, torture or kidnapping, the maximum that the OSO patient Palaszczuk wants to put your way is the best part of $9,000. Now remember, if you are the victim of any of these crimes, your life has changed forever. But can you believe that if you are the victim of a grievous bodily harm, a robbery, torture, a sexual offence or kidnapping, the compensation is $9,000. Remember, a backbencher in the Queensland Parliament's paid the best part of $200,000. The money that is given in compensation to lots of other organisations that they see potential votes in, of course, is millions of dollars. But to the thousands, and it is thousands of victims of crime, this is the true price they are putting on your emotional distress, the true compensation that they believe you are entitled to. It gets worse. For what are called Category C offences, which is serious assault or unlawful wounding, is there any such thing as lawful wounding? $6,000 maximum. Your life changed forever. Here's $6,000. For Category D, which is unlawful stalking or domestic violence, $3,000. Now, for obvious reasons, the compensation scheme that gives people like distress, maybe $15,000 in an extreme scenario, obviously funeral payments not relevant in some, if not all, of those offences, we are talking about chump change. Now, am I suggesting that the entire Queensland state budget should be spent on the victims of crime? Of course not. But when this is a mob that are pretending they care about crime, they do nothing to try to stop it. They do nothing to try to box the judiciary in with mandatory minimums for repeat offenders on any one of these things. Instead, you have a system where the politicians say we care, but the reality is that they could care as little as $3,000. Think of the money that this state government spends on, you name it. The price of your pain, $3,000. Now, of course, Annastacia Palaszczuk, she was too weak to front the people when they protested out the front of Parliament, so some were slid through the side door. But then, of course, as the opinion polls have continued to show that, among other reasons, youth crime and its out-of-control nature suggest that people would like to sack the last standing Premier from the COVID era. Well, guess what automatically happened? There was meetings that have now been taking place. There's also money to establish a Victims of Crime Commissioner, so great, a new public servant to hold your hand to fill out the paperwork for maybe $3,000. Yet the same government turns around and is about to decriminalise drugs that make up 10% of the entire youth offender mix. And again, I repeat, for many people whom would end up committing crimes, one of the reasons they are doing so is to pay for the drugs that now the Queensland government say there is effectively no punishment for being caught with. I say this often about government. Pay attention to what they do, not what they say. Make sure that you keep checking in with programs like this and read widely what they actually announce. Because the bet is that they assume that most people don't care and most people will just hear, wow, $200 million compensation for victims of crime over 5 years, capped in some cases to just $3,000. They're not serious. They're only serious about the one thing they're good at, and that is maintaining political power. As I've said for multiple years, I certainly hope that the good people of Queensland don't fall for it. They don't fall for the spin from the 6 p.m. news. They don't fall for the lies that come from Parliament House. Queensland needs new leadership that is serious about actually taking care of victims of crime by, most importantly, preventing crime and creating a series of laws that mean that the person whom is responsible for it is actually punished for it, as opposed to you being punished for the rest of your life.